Welcome back to the Intuition Incubator. Today, I have with me really one of my favorite people to talk to, Lyn Wineman. Few can match Lyn Wineman's passion for marketing or for helping changemakers do more good in the world. As the founder, president, and chief strategist of the full service advertising agency KidGlov, she has created a space where both passions flourish. Lyn's talented team is known for putting the megaphone in front of those leading positive change. KidGloved earned its certified B Corp status in 2021, proof of their commitment to social and environmental excellence. Lyn is also the host of the Agency for Change podcast, yet another forum to amplify the voice of changemakers everywhere.
Aw, thank you, Abby. You're one of my favorite people to talk to, too. So, even though I'm going to just be totally honest, I'm a little bit nervous about this today. I'm a little bit I'm a little bit out of control, and you know how I love control.
Should we do a
Um,
little meditation?
oh, do we start with meditation?
Start by just bringing ourselves to our heart.
That's a great idea. Okay.
Do that. Let's just connect to each other's hearts for a moment. Taking a deep breath in and bringing all of our presence to this space here between us and to the listeners, knowing that everybody's going to hear exactly what they needed to hear today, including you and including me.
So good. You always know just what I need. Yeah, that just
Yeah,
fell down a little
take
bit.
it down. But why are you nervous? Why are you nervous?
What
You
I'm
know,
used
over time.
I'm used to being the host and asking the questions.
I like to be in control.
I
Yeah.
think too, Abby, I do a lot of podcasts, both my own, but for other people. But I'm always asked to talk about business or business concepts or kid glove. And I think today we're going to talk about me and that that is a little different, right? A little
Yeah.
different.
Well, I like that opening because honestly, it's funny in business and I don't know like well, I do know a little bit, but from
Yeah.
my upbringing, I was taught that literally like no one cares what you have to say.
Right.
It's
Yes.
all about corporate America, right? Cuz that's how women back then were,
Oh,
trained,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and so but what's hilarious, of course, that you and I know and that you've discovered over, our time together, I think for sure, is that who is not bringing themselves to their business,
Yeah.
right? Like, w
100%.
we have this idea of there's a separation between, I normally talk about business, but I'm gonna talk about me today. What? That's the same thing,
Yeah, but
right?
it just feels safer when you're behind the mask of business, right? But you're
Yes.
so right. Like for 22 years, I had a boss and a mentor who really had my best interests in mind. And I think it was the right advice for the time. But, you know, his advice to me and coaching to me is you've got to learn how to be one of the guys.
Yeah.
Right. And I even recently told one of my daughters that I remember, you know, being very business and achievement focused and almost feeling like when I went to work, I had to set my mom parts to the side, right? Like I didn't talk about that. I even remember a young woman who reported to me once introducing herself and saying, I am first a mom and then I do this. And I had to say to her, oh, that's not going to help you in this situation. But
Yeah, right.
I'm glad that we live in a more enlightened time right now because I do think that it's way more acceptable to be who you are today and to harmonize what you do at home and what you do at work because also we've all learned particularly during the pandemic there's very little separation between the two.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think, part of my thinking around the intuition incubator is this sense that, you are bringing yourself to it's not even the connection between work and home, it's the more you bring of you,
Yeah.
to your
Yeah.
business, the better your business does. And it's crazy because we all have this idea that, well, I've got to look this way and I got to come off this way and I got to let everybody know that,
Yeah.
I work, 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 work. And, it's funny. I had Craig Goldberg on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was actually sharing about this tribal mentality that
Mm,
we have. And when you're in a tribe, like way, way back, we needed to each other to survive. Everybody needed a whole tribe. Like now
yeah.
we can fend for ourselves. But if you're in a tribe and everybody has to do the job and everybody in the tribe is looking around going, "Oh, well, he's been sitting down for an awful long time. What's he doing?"
Right.
You know? And if you get cast out of that tribe, you don't eat that day. Like, you die, right? And that's, like, sort of the evolution that we've come to, and I think we've brought that mentality, that survival mentality, like, right into our present day bodies and minds.
Without even realizing or being conscious to it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
So tell us though, I mean, KidGlov is such a really awesome company and you've had so much success, building it and a lot of hardships.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, one of the things that happens for, business owners, is that we start something, we've got big vision, we're very excited,
Oh,
and we've
yeah.
got all this energy.
Oh, yeah.
And then life happens,
Oh,
right? Then you
yeah.
have employee infighting, or you lose the client, or you got money problems, or all the things. And all of a sudden, that vision that we had, turns into something altogether, something else. And it's called
Absolutely.
efforting. And, I'd love for you to share with us a little about your story because I feel like you have a great story of really learning to have your ear closer to your intuition and learning to calm those other parts down quite a bit.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say, Abby, just up front, that I think the key to having the ear to intuition and the key to calming the crazy parts is truly, feeling tranquil, feeling peaceful and just being more present, which I never really valued any of those things at one time in my life. If you had said, "Hey, Lynn, the key to success for you is to be more tranquil and be more present," I would just go, "Yeah, wah, wah, wah," right? Like, uh, next, right? Like, because, for a long time, my mantra was, you know, I will outwork, outthink, out effort anyone. And so, when I started my own business, and honestly, this has been a goal of mine for a long time. When I was 23 years old and working for a regional advertising agency, the president of the agency brought me in after I'd been there for about a year and he said, "So, Lyn Wineman, what are your goals?" And I said in a very cheeky way, like, I want my last name above the door on the side. I like that was always my goal to run an advertising agency because I love the field and I'm a visionary person. And so, throughout my career and I pulled it into Kid Glove, whenever I hit either an exciting goal or an obstacle, my mode of operandi was double down on the work, on the effort, on the striving, on the competing, all the things that I didn't realize as I was doing those things, that's as I'm coming to find out, that's exactly the opposite of what I needed to do. But because I did that for so many years, when you and I met at early last year, I was so tightly wound. Like it's taken us a while to peel the layers of the onion. And I feel like we still have a lot of work to do. Definitely work in progress. But let me tell you about Kid Glove because I do love to talk about Kid Glove. So, fulfilling my dream in 2010, I got to start my own agency, and I was at a point where I'd worked at a large firm, I'd worked at a small firm. I was ready to leave the small firm. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and my wonderful husband said to me, "Hey, you've always wanted to start your own agency. Why don't you do it?" And those were just I still thank him every day for saying those words because that's what I needed to hear. And literally the next day, with my laptop at my dining room table, I was off to the races. And I didn't start when I started, I just wanted to be a great agency, right? I wanted to be a great agency with a great culture. And I started getting clients, and I started with like a freelance remote team. And then I moved to hiring people. And we got clients. We did really well. I mean, there were the ups and downs. We had the 3-year financial hit that a lot of new businesses have, but we survived, right? And as we grew through that and we really started to lean into doing branding, my son, who is wonderful and very authentic, will just say what he thinks. My son had heard me talk a lot about branding. And one day we were in the car together and I looked over at a bank that had rebranded and I was like, oh, that is terrible. That is a really boring brand. And my son, bless his heart, said, "That kind of reminds me of your brand, mom." And I was like, "Oh, he's right." And so we rebranded to KidGlov because we wanted the world to know we take great care of people and of brands, right? And that's not always what you think of when you think of Mad Men or just the whole typical advertising agency. Taking great care of people and brands isn't always what comes to mind. So we wanted to differentiate in that way, but as we grew and we kind of went down the path, we also one day said, we need to get out of this mode of just being everything to everyone, and we need to really focus. We need to focus on what is it that we do best? What is it that we can do better than anyone else? And yes, I know that's those comparative achievement words, but what is our niche? And we pulled the whole team together and we said, we're really great at doing nonprofit advertising, of helping nonprofits, really live into their mission by doing all the things that we do. We love working with change makers. We love working on public health and social impact campaigns. And so at that point, we really leaned into that line of work, working with mission driven or purpose driven organizations. And I tell you, Abby, when we hit the pandemic and the world was a little bit crazy and we went overnight to working remote and we didn't know what was going to happen, knowing that every day we got up and kind of slogged through the chaos of that time, knowing that we were helping, foster kids find families and seniors find great communities and nonprofits, achieve money for their capital campaigns so they could expand, that all made it worthwhile. And I think that continues into today. We've got a really great team who loves, our mission, which is putting a megaphone in front of those who are doing good in the world. And I'm really proud of the fact that I get to do that every day.
Yeah, which is such a great tag. I love that. I love that tagline.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's talk about the hard questions, right? Because as we sort of said, and I know that, we have some similarities, in the world of like, our personality parts, what we show up with and what not. And I think that a lot of people who are visionaries have the same ones, right? We
Yeah.
think very big and we do a lot of amazing things. And the way that we come off to the world is pretty important to us.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We have that kind of that vanity part and which I think is natural and normal and everybody has. But I
Right.
think what is the part that is really hard, it takes a lot of courage to step back from that part and actually really figure out what's going on inside me. What is driving me right
Yeah.
now? And sometimes it's those really hard moments that bring us, to our knees to the point where we have to start to look at that.
Right.
And so one of the things that I really kind of asked my guests, and I think that, fear, and speaking of branding, I'm in the process of renaming this the Intuition Incubator Overcoming Fear.
Oh,
With
yeah.
because fear has so much to do with this, right? Like when I think
Absolutely.
about everything that I talk about and work on, it is, inside myself and with my clients, it's fear, and it could be fear of anything, right?
Yeah.
Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of finding clarity, fear of looking like a fool, fear of so many things,
Yeah.
um, fear of opening up. We just started the show talking about that, right? Like
Absolutely.
fear of being seen, all that stuff. So, tell us about, where what tell us about a hard moment and maybe even how it relates to intuition.
Yeah.
Do you have a time where you made a decision for your business that when you look back, you're like, that was not intuitively based? And this is
Yeah.
what happened,
Oh,
and
so
vice versa.
so many. I mean, I think part of being an entrepreneur, a business owner is like the willingness to take risks, right? I mean, one of my favorite mantras, even though I don't always fully live it, is that, I think about snow skiing, right? And when I would snow ski, I would always say, "Hey, if you're not falling down a couple times a day, you're not skiing hard enough, right?"
Easy
And
to say, right?
yeah, right. You're taking the easy road, which of course I always said that after I had just like tumbled over and lost my skis and had snow in my hair, and my husband was perfectly like going down the modals. Right. It's like, "Oh, you're not doing it right." But wow, there's there's a lot of things that I probably wish I would have done differently, right? Cuz we all wish we would have done differently when things don't go as well. But there was a time when I thought my great business idea was that instead of growing to be a huge agency, I wanted to have small local teams, right? Like, hey, 10 people in Lincoln, Nebraska, and 10 people in Omaha, and 10 people in Colorado, and 10 people in Kansas City. And I had this perfectly mapped out spreadsheet on how it was going to work. And we were going to add a person every 2 months and add clients like this. Like, it was all mapped out perfectly. And so, what I didn't realize is, hey, I started in Lincoln, Nebraska and hired people in Lincoln, Nebraska. I am really well at the time that I started, I had a really strong reputation in the community and it was pretty easy for me to add clients, right? It was like, cool, like this business thing is easy, right? And then I started to move into Omaha, Nebraska, which is not that far away, but it's like there's this divide between that agents companies in Omaha don't like to work with Lincoln agencies and vice versa. So it was like, all right, that was a little bit hard. We started adding some people in Omaha and getting accepted there. I was okay. Then we went to Colorado. Nobody knew us. The competition was stronger. The agencies were bigger. The clients were bigger. And it did not go well, right? Right away, I had a person from our Nebraska office that moved out, and I hired someone from Colorado. And it was like, this is going to be great because this person, just like I was known here, this person is known there, and they're going to kill it.
Mhm.
But it didn't work like that at all, right? Like, these clients in Colorado were like, "Wait a minute, you're a Nebraska agency?" And I kind of let myself get insecure, and instead of being kid glove in Colorado, I kinda let the Colorado people go, "This is what we have to be to win in Colorado," and it's like, "Okay, I trust you because you know the market, let's do your thing." Yeah, no, it didn't work at all, and it cost me a lot of money, it was really stressful, I felt bad because it was really stressful for the people I hired there, and that's something that I had to face up to. Like, I was like, "Oh, easy peasy here, a little bit harder here," but then way
Right.
harder. I didn't really do my A, I didn't do my research. B, I think if I'd been better about sticking to my intuition,
Yeah.
I would have handled it so much differently. But I call that my MBA because it cost me about the same amount of beef and money as somebody else who did an MBA. And I learned a lot from the process, right? And
Was that around the time that we met?
no, that was even a few years before we met, Abby.
Okay.
It's a few years before we met, but it's probably one of the gifts because you always talk to me about every situation is a gift and an opportunity. I think the two gifts that came out of that hardship is one, I did through that process start to make connections in Colorado that led me to other connections that led me to other connections that led me to you. And I think
Ah,
that's,
yeah.
how you and I probably wouldn't have connected if that hadn't happened, honestly. And I think the second is it was during that time that we said, "Hey, we gotta figure out our niche here because going out to Colorado and just being another, you know,
Yeah.
creative agency is not gonna cut it. We've got to have a different angle to make that work."
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's so important that, it does. It seems like when we don't follow our intuition or it's fear-based, right? Like, I
Fear-based.
gotta have I mean, and I'm putting words in your mouth, so you take them back if this is the case, but what I'm imagining is that this vision that you had didn't come from the same place that you started out. It came more from a place of wanting to achieve or what your ego thought achieving would be, and it was this more generic thing that was not really, you know, deeply embedded in how you felt like, during COVID, like, just so connected to helping people.
Yeah, so there's this mantra, I think, in the business world, and I've had a couple of business coaches, actually 3 that I can think of over the last 15 years, 3 people who've said to me, "Hey, if you're not doubling every 3 years, what are you doing?" Right?
And I'd
And
never say
so
that to you.
I know you never say that to me, but, like, I think one of my realizations earlier this year as you and I have been working together is I had this goal in my head that was put there by a business mantra. Like, it wasn't my goal. Like, I mean, when you think of KidGlov and taking great care of people and brands and putting a megaphone in front of those that are doing good in the world, there's nothing about that mission that says you have to double every 3 years or what are you doing, right? But I've got that voice in my head. I mean, even as I say it, like I hear the person who said it to me first and second and third. And I feel like that really drove me from an artificial place, right? Like from a place that was not intuitive. And so then when I would put these plans in place, like, okay, I got to double, I was outside of my place of authenticity, but then also when it didn't work, it's like really caused me to question what am I doing? Just like the voice, right? Like, man, if I can't figure this out, am I even worthy of being in business, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, like, the self-sabotage that we go in after that, like,
Yeah.
it's so it's bad enough, to be there, but when the voice that we start talking to ourselves with after, whatever it is, is and I always say, I mean, that's the habit we have to break,
Yeah.
and you and I did, well, I led you through positive intelligence. And so we let just for the listeners, the people that don't know, aren't very aware of positive intelligence, there's a saboteur assessment that identifies what your
Yeah.
saboteurs are. And there's an assessment that you can take. Actually, it's in the show notes. And and then we begin to learn, like, how is that saboteur really running our lives? And what is it
Absolutely.
saying to us? What's the lie it's saying to us? And that hyperachiever saboteur is just always saying it's never enough and your worth
Yeah.
is equal to this, and nothing else. And you can't celebrate and you can't do any of the things,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And Abby, when you and I first started talking, like I was at a very low place because, Kid Glove had gone through those ups and downs and it was kind of not early pandemic, but mid pandemic. And we hit an economic downturn and I held on as long as I could, but I had to have some layoffs as most businesses have. And it's interesting because when you have to go through a reduction in force, and you talk to other business owners and business leaders, they often say to you, "Well, of course, like, this is part of business." And, like, logically in your head, you're going, "Well, of course, this is part of business." But in your heart or in my heart or wherever it was, I was just feeling like I am the biggest failure, right? Like, I have let people down. I have, particularly when culture is so important and then you lose people because you had to let them go, like, just so painful. And then you feel like you've let the people down because, you know, they're counting on you as their employer. And even for me, like, imagining their families, right? Like their husbands and wives and kids, and I've had to let them go, and what kind of stress and chaos that's causing them. It just was so painful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really great thing to talk about because know that business owners, feel that way. And the problem, those thoughts, that are these negative states of being, they're fired by our saboteurs. They're firing off in our mind because our saboteur is telling you you're a failure. If you're having a negative emotion, it just means that you are living in that emergency part of your brain
Yeah.
and it's saboteur driven and it's telling you this lie. And one of the things that I think is so important in business today that just gets overlooked so much is we get very narrow focused when that happens, right? Also, to your point, we're thinking, oh my God, I screwed this up and these poor people and blah, blah, blah. And as you and I walked through, those layoffs together, you know, um, there were lots of really good things that came out of that and trusting like a larger process and trusting that we don't even know what's
Right.
best for everybody. We make assumptions
Yeah.
that it would be better not to do that. But that old saying, sometimes God does for us what we can't do for ourselves.
Right.
Lots of people, I talk to people all the time that say this layoff happened. I didn't want it. I felt like it was awful, but man, does God do for you what 'cause I
Right.
needed to be laid off. I get to work in a place, blah, blah, blah. Now I get to find myself. Now I spent a year losing weight. Now whatever it was.
Absolutely. It's so hard in the moment, though. Like, it's just so
Yeah.
hard in the moment. And I mean, yeah, so hard in the moment. But I
What
think I was
thought
lucky to
that
have you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was you did the work, and I remember that very first meeting you said, "I almost canceled. This is probably the worst day of my life. I haven't slept in 10 days. I don't even know why I'm here." And I'm thinking, "Oh, I know why you're here. This is perfect. This is exactly how I love people to show up. This is awesome.
I
Like,
mean,
that's the
to put
last
it
time you
y
cancel."
yeah, to put it in perspective, I'm pretty sure pretty early on in the conversation you asked, "Are you gonna harm yourself? Like, are you okay?"
I don't remember that.
You asked the question, yeah, like, "Okay, do I need to?" And I was like, I was very much not okay.
You were in Shameland, right? Over nothing to be ashamed of, right? Over normal business dealings and what came out of it, right? Like tell us now, like a decision that you made that you really knew was like you're intuitively like this because it's not either or, right? It's not like, "Oh, you go for all the money, doubling every 3 years, or you make no money." Like, the whole idea is that we do it in ease and flow, that instead of pushing a boulder up a mountain, we're pulling the business into us, and it's
Yeah.
more right? And you had so many experiences like that. So share
Right.
a decision that you then made or something that happened that just you intuitively were like, this is it, that resulted in something great.
I think, I mean, I'm gonna bring up a couple. I think one was to really take a look at, I'm gonna stop striving. Like, that goal of doubling every 3 years that has been put on my brain from this business mantra, like, I'm gonna stop that. Like,
Mhm.
that's not what I want. Because
Serving you.
in that case, as you're striving and trying to grow like that, often you're growing your team too quickly. You're bringing in people. When you're bringing in people, maybe you really shouldn't bring in just because you need people on the team. But then also on the flip side, you're bringing in clients that really don't fit you either because you're like, "Hey, I got a number to hit here.
Yeah.
Just the doors are open, bring in the warm bodies," right? And it was never quite like that, but yet it was out of alignment for sure. And I think the other thing is, it really well, I was in a lot of shame because we talk about culture and team and having those things, and there was a moment where it's like, "Can I ever talk about having a great culture again after I ruined our culture, right? Or can I ever
Oh
talk
God.
about, supporting the team?" But I think we've really, in the last couple of years, doubled down on culture and supporting the team, and I think that's a really important thing too.
Yeah, I mean, I always share. I just and I you allowed me to do this at a conference recently that I was speaking at, a very large credit union conference, and Lynn, was gracious enough to say, "Hey, tell my story. If it's going to help people, that's great." And one of my favorite, I mean, I get chills just talking about it. My favorite part of sharing the journey
Yeah.
of doing the work that you did. Is your what vision statement that just flowing out of you. I remember
Right.
getting on a call with you once and saying, you said, I just started writing a vision statement. And it was like, we both were crying.
We
It was
were,
just
yes.
so, and I was crying when I did the presentation. Like it's the most beautiful vision, and then I came in and did some work in your company and, like, saw
Yes.
the new company. It's like, yeah, this is the culture. This is KidGlov. Everybody feels super valued. Everybody's on fire for this mission that you guys are all on.
Yeah.
And then you sent me an email not long ago of the acceptance that you got from a really big deal, right? Like, what did those people say
Yeah,
about
they
that?
basically, in their feedback to us after telling us they were gonna award us the business, in their feedback to us, they shared their comments on why they chose us, and almost point for point, it aligned with our new ideal statement, right? And it was just like, wow, okay, we're on to something here, right? Like kind of leaning into your intuition can really work, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember some of the things they said, like, "Kid gloves real, we're real, real needs real," you
Yeah.
know?
Real needs real. Thank you for remembering that.
Yes.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, they said, "We need a connection." We felt totally connected, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what business is about, right?
Yeah.
And we get
Yeah.
so confused. Our saboteurs come on. I know mine do. I mean, like, you're not sharing anything that I have not experienced myself, and I know in our work I share with you, like, all kinds of times. Like, I mean, we get these fear state that we get in, around I gotta be the best, or I gotta be this, or I
Yeah.
gotta, and I'm letting people down, and I'm a failure, and I screwed up, and everyone is having that voice. And that voice causes us to just say things like, "Oh, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have even shown up for this session. I should just go huddle in my little hole." Imagine, right? Imagine if you had, and this is what people do. It causes us to then be more alone and
Yeah.
and to feel like we're all the only one. And it snowballs.
Yeah.
And what we don't realize is, like, when we plug into our heart and our intuition and we just calm the fear down, just like we did at the very beginning of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I did, the one that the se the, I did a, podcast with Dr. Sandra Solano, who it actually taught me heart math. She was my trainer. I was the
I
trainer.
can't wait to listen to that episode, by the way.
Yeah, it just came out today, and it's funny because a few weeks ago, I was interviewing some friends who are very big in the heart math world, and they came kind of flying into the session, and a lot had been going on, and I said, "Hey, do you want me to, should we just take a minute?" And they were like, "Yeah." And then when I did Sandra's, I was flying in like, "Oh my gosh," and he's like, "Do you want me to lead you through smart?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yes.
You
It's
know,
amazing what a difference it makes. Yeah.
Yes. It's just taking that time to use the tools to plug in and get out of fear to make that physiological shift
Yeah.
in your brain and body. And then all of a sudden, there's so much information
Right.
And I
And
think when go ahead.
yeah, Abby, one of the things I wanted to say too is because one of the things you helped me with and we've worked on is this PQ operating system with the saboteurs, right? And I think the first time you had me do the assessment, I think I had how many total saboteurs are there? Is it like 10 or 12?
Ted, there's 9 accomplice. So the judge is
Okay.
the first. The judge is the voice in your head, and then there's 9 accomplice.
So
Yep.
I had 4 on a 10-point scale. I had 4 saboteurs that were a 9 or higher. Like,
Yeah.
if that even says, like, how tightly wound I was. But what I appreciate about understanding my saboteurs is now I can identify when they're on which one's on my shoulder, right? Like,
Mm.
I can identify which one's on my shoulder. I have a framework to kind of talk to myself or recognize, what's happening. And then I can also separate that from that's not me. That's my
Nice.
saboteur voice that's coming in because I'm afraid. And even sometimes even thanking my saboteurs because I know they're trying to protect me, but you know,
Yeah.
it's not working.
Right. We don't need that protection anymore. We
I
need
know
daddy
they
punished.
should. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's so, so common. It's people think that their thoughts and those negative thoughts that the saboteurs are firing are them, and they believe them.
Yeah.
They believe that that is the truth. And it's such a you're hogtied when that happens. It's such a disempowering state,
Yeah.
and
And
I
like
think that's
even
exhausting.
I even Abby as a leader, as I think about my team, and I love my team here at KidGlov, but they're a great team. I think about sometimes there'll be things that happen in our culture or with a group of subgroup of people or in a situation that we're in. And I will think, gosh, I wish they would stop doing that thing that they're doing. Like, why are they doing that? And what I've kind of learned now is often either it's saboteur related or sometimes there's things that I am doing that are caused by my saboteurs that are in turn creating that reaction in my team, right? So whereas
Mm.
like old Lynn would have been just go tell him to stop doing that, right? But I think what we all know is sometimes that's the very worst thing to do. Like to go tell someone to stop doing that, then their fear increases and their saboteurs increases. And they're not doing it because they're fully present and conscious. They're doing it because it's tied to something else. And so, one thing I'm really working on, which I think is going to be a long time work in progress, but it's it's being the kind of leader, being the kind of person I need to be so that our culture here at Kid Glove can be healthy, so that we're providing the kind of service and work to our clients that I need. So,
And it's yeah, I mean, and it's big work, right? It's big work. It's in the moment work because, the natural drive is just you just wanna, like, just stop doing that. Let's move forward. We've gotta get this done. We only have so much time. This is what every cell in our body is telling
yeah,
us. And
for
to
sure.
stop, and to be introspective like that as a leader and say, "Wait a minute. Let me" yeah, there might be some coaching that needs to happen for this employee here. There might be some things that I need to work with them on. And let me first check in with myself and just sort of do a quick scan and see, "Oh, wait a minute. Was I nervous about something? Was I anxious about something?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something that's happening literally or even energetically in what
Yeah.
I am feeding the field in my office that's causing this. And maybe it can just be diffused so much quicker,
Yeah.
by just saying, hey, you know what? I'm realizing I was feeling a little anxious. How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Well, I was
Which
feeling low.
Yeah, so simple because in the past, I would have been like, okay, I need to read one more book. I need to listen to one more podcast. They need to come up with one more plan, right? Like, I think I shared this with you, but there was even one year where somebody said to me as an offhanded comment, they said, well, the best leaders in the world read 60 books a year. And at that moment, like that triggered me. My hyperachiever was like, wah, wah, wah. And I was like, well, I'm going to read 60 books this year. And like, I just went on this crazy mission and I was like posting it online, book number one, book number two, book number three. And of the 62 books, I bet 52 of them were like some kind of like self-help or motivation, like how to be the best boss, how to be the best planner, blue ocean strategy, like 10x and right things. And just like so much stuff swimming in my head about I need to do this and I need to do that. And I mean, it's just crazy because instinctively what I thought was going to help me, I think just wound me up even tighter.
Well, yeah, and this idea that it's this cognitive offloading, right? Like, I don't need to look inside my I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go read this book and see what this
Yeah.
person said to do. And, and that's when we started, you'd be like, "Just tell me what to do, I'll go do it, and then I'll be done."
Needs to tell me what to do. Yes. How annoying. You never would. Why
I
not
never
tell me
would
to do?
because you know so much better than I know what to do, right? Like, there's such a denial of the power within and the authenticity and the answer that lies within. Every decision that, that we make, that it comes from that introspection and sort of like just tapping in. It can't fail, and someone can tell I mean, plus we take in so much information. Sometimes I'm reading, like, 5 different books. I'm like, "Well, I need to know all the things, I need to know them yesterday."
Yes. I do still read a lot of books, but
Yeah.
not to that crazy extent, right? Like when I used to have a cartoon on my bulletin board, there was like just this little line drawing of a guy who was in the doctor's office and the patient was saying, "Doctor, I need to relax, but I want to relax faster and better than anyone ever has." I put it on my bulletin board because
Oh, yes.
so related to that, right? Like, yes, that is so me. I need to relax faster and better than anyone ever.
Well, and I think it's tricky because listen, all of those things about you, um, they did create a lot of success for you, right? And that's
Right.
the thing that, we talk about in positive intelligence as well, like and I've been talking about for a long time, and especially, when we get to be, our age and our stage. And it's like the things that got us to where we are not the same things that are gonna get us to where we wanna go.
I also read that book, and it's not a very good book, just for what it's worth.
I didn't know it was a book, but I know this sentiment
Things
is true.
Yeah, the things that got you here will not get you there. That
Will
is the
not get
type.
you there. Yeah.
I don't think I could it was one of the few I couldn't actually finish, but
Well, let's just leave it at the title then, because the title's true.
the title is true. Yeah, all you need to know is right there in the title. But I think what you said just reminded me of something that also is very fear-based. The thought of giving up, like, I mean, my saboteurs at the top of the list is the restless who like wants to be doing like new things fast and always busy. And then I have the hyperachiever, which is self-explanatory. And then I have the controller, which is literally the work that I do. Like I try to help
Mhm.
control the reactions in people related to products or services or
So
nonprofit
true.
or campaigns. And then I think I had the hypervigilant with who was just trying to pick up all the pieces from the other one. But there's a part of me that was like, if I stop being a hyperachiever, or if I stop being a controller, or if I stop jumping from thing to thing and processing things fast, will I still be me? Like, will I just become ineffective, right? And
Yeah.
was a real fear. It's less now, but every once in a while it pops in there. It's like, well, where's the line? And for me right now, I think that's the place in the journey I am. Like, where's the line between being calm and tranquil and intuitive and being a good business person? And I think even, in my community, there just was this big conference that a lot of people I know and respect went to and spoke at, and I chose not to go to because it was called the Hustle conference.
Oh, geez.
And, it was all about like, if you're to be an entrepreneur, you got to do these things. And it's like, that is everything I'm just trying to put my hand up to and step away from. But it's just such a part of the
It
business culture, I
it's
think.
drilled into us, so it's the
Yeah.
education system, it's drilled into us, and the falsehood I think that we live by is that everything you just named, you said, this part of me that I'm really good at controlling things so that I can do all of these things and I'm good at these things, and you named all of these things, and if I stop being those things, am I still me? And this is the crux of the question, right? Because we think that our personality is us.
Yeah.
We think that those behaviors or those traits or these thoughts are what define us. That's not what is you are a little orb essence. You are a bright light. You are a spirit. You are a channel.
Yeah.
There's so much more than those things. And we know that because sometimes we're super controlling and doing all that stuff, and then sometimes we're not. Sometimes we have this part out and it's more relaxed and playful, and other times we have another part out. And so the personality and the ego is not reliable. That is not
Yeah.
who we are, right?
Right.
And so plugging into, that intuition and that source, that bright light that you are, you
Yeah.
know, and using that as the true north, but I so hear what you're saying, and I think it's something that we have been habituated into us,
Yeah.
and it's really hard to unlearn, and sometimes we have to keep following it and then hitting our face against a wall and be like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
okay, who was driving that? Oh, my restless was driving that. Oh,
Mhm.
my." And I think, you even had this beautiful experience, because the controller saboteur, all of these saboteurs, as you and I know, they come from these really beautiful qualities that we have. So the hyperachiever, for example, is a visionary, but when that person's under stress, they start to only value themselves according to what they're
Yeah.
achieving. The controller is someone who's really great at taking action. So a lot of leaders have a controller saboteur when they get under stress. When they're not under stress, that is the person who makes things happen, right? But when the controller is under stress, they start micromanaging people,
Yeah.
and the voice starts saying, "Listen, the only way this is going to happen is if you do everything."
Yeah.
And then your team, then what happens to your team when you're taking the slide deck and say,
They become totally alienated, right? Because they're like, why would I even try? She's just gonna redo it anyway. Or, you know, I can't tell you how many middle of the night emails I would write, right? Like, oh, I'm going to do this and I want you to do this. And I would type all the things. And of course, it'd be a little bit crazy because I was sleep deprived. And I'm going to send this email and somebody's going to completely get my vision and know exactly what to do. And I think there was a time when my staff was afraid to open their emails in the morning because, you know, I would wake up at 3 o'clock. I'd pop out of bed and be like, I must send more emails, right? Or nothing's going to get done. And yeah, that did not work out very well for me. But I
"Yeah,
kept doing it, right? It's like, maybe I need to send longer emails or more implement.
that needs to happen."
Maybe I need to time my emails so they arrive at 8:02 instead of 5:38. Yeah.
Yeah, we get so obsessed with what we have to do instead of who we need to be. I have another client who has someone working in her office, and, a leader in the office, and the whole team, the staff refers to him, "Oh, I got mic'd."
Yeah.
He came in and just completely micromanaged everything that I did, and what am I doing this for? And then the leader complains nobody does anything, and I have to do everything myself. And when you're a leader, and this is something that you've done such an amazing job of too, is it's really hard to let go of things,
It
but
is.
for you to get on bigger stages, which you have, and to take on bigger clients and to do the amazing things that you have done for all of these incredible
Thank you.
nonprofit businesses, even just in the time that I've known you, you have had
Yeah.
to step back and give things to your team because you need to be out there
Yeah.
doing that other stuff. And that was one of the things you said when you came. You're like, I want to be on bigger stages. I want to take up
Yeah.
bigger clients. And we looked at what you were doing every day. Well, how is that going to happen?
That's right.
You're doing everybody's job. you know? And then you did some hard work around that.
Yeah, and now one thing I love is every once in a while I'll be in the office or I'll see something, it's like, "Wait, what's this? I didn't even know we were doing this." And it's like that's I have a little celebration inside because it's like, "That's cool," because the team really needed me, or even, recently, you know, a lot of, like, meetings or presentations that I would have been in, like, just telling the team, "You guys, you have this. I'll be there if you feel like you need me to," but and then having them come and thank me after and saying, "Thank you for trusting us because this went
Mhm.
great and we had a chance to do our thing." Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the joy of knowing that you are raising up this next level of leaders.
Yeah. That's
Like,
really
it's like,
exciting.
oh my god, that's even then that's like, that's really cool too. Not only are you doing great work for the nonprofits, but you're raising up these people, as
Absolutely.
a mentor. So,
Absolutely.
that is awesome. Lynn, um, I so appreciate your being here. Tell us, I think what would really be lovely is, what is it that you having all the experience that you have, you know, um, what is what is it that you would like to share with leaders who, are in that stress place right now, that are just feeling maybe like a failure, trying to be the best, trying to do all the things. Maybe they're in financial struggle, maybe whatever, beating themselves up. What do you want to share with them?
Mm. Wow, that's a big one, Abby, but I think that I'm gonna go back to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? And when she clicks her heels and speaks to the place that, you are who you are inside, right? And I
Mhm.
think that for me, the journey has been about realizing that it's not about working harder. It's not about saying the perfect thing or having the perfect image. It's not about controlling the meeting or controlling the message. It's about really looking inward and understanding those fears and releasing them. And I think releasing the fears is what's gonna give you the peace and the calm. Yeah. And I think it's just so, for me at least, counterintuitive to everything I thought was gonna make me feel better. Um, so, yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
would say. I have this
Well,
picture in my head, Abby, and you and I have talked about this, but when we talk about, I'm a visual person, so when we talk about, like, what is my essence or who is my essence, I picture this little blue cloud inside of me with big blinking eyes, right? And so sometimes when I get really tangled up, I realize that I haven't spent much time with that little blue cloud lately. Like I've been all over the place. So, for me, I kind of picture my essence. And I think maybe the other silly thing that I do that maybe is helpful to people, you know, when I'm experiencing a moment of panic or anxiety, like when I can really just feel it like bubbling up my chest and into my throat. And um, I've started just taking a moment to process that fear. And once again, because I'm a visual person, I picture it as spaghetti, which is gonna seem so weird, right? But
I love it.
I, like, think about each fear. I think about each fear, and I just think about it, like, wrapping around me like a big piece of spaghetti, and then once I've done this, and it's amazing how it doesn't take that long, like, okay, what are all the fears I have right now? Okay, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this. Usually it's 7 or 8 things, right? So I'm imagining myself wrapped up in these big strands of spaghetti and me just taking my hands and just pushing it off, and something about that, like, helps calm me. Like, these fears aren't really that bad. We'll work them through, right?
You know what I love about that? I love that it's spaghetti because the fears are so made up in our mind. And the decision, right? Like spaghetti breaks easily, but you
Yeah.
have to move. You've got to move your body to break it up. You got to make that decision to do it.
But I'm like, my brain is all tangled up and it's just like, mm. And
Yeah.
once I push it away, then it clears my path to move forward.
I love
Uh,
it. I
there you
love it.
go. The spaghetti technique. You
The
can use
spaghetti
it
technique
for
by Lyn Wineman.
you can
So,
use
Lynn, where can people find you? I know you've got this fabulous podcast. What are you
that.
gonna let people know about that and about, what you're up to and how they can reach you and work with you?
Absolutely. I'm going to say three things. Our website is kidglov.com, and that's kidglove without an E. Because if you put the E on, you're going to end up with a transportation company in Indiana, which they are lovely, but you're not going to find me there. So KidGlov.com without an E. If you go under what's new, our podcast is featured there, but the podcast is called Agency for Change. You can find it on Spotify and Apple, YouTube, all the major podcast services. And honestly, if somebody hears this and wants to chat, the best place to find me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. You message me on LinkedIn, I'll message you back. We'll get connected and talk.
I love it. And we'll have all the links in the show notes. Lynn, thank you so much for being here, for being you and doing everything that you do. I have the utmost respect for the journey that you're on, and I am so honored to have been on it with you.
Oh, Abby, I'm gonna say the same. Here's to doing the work, and thank you for being my guide.
Yeah, my pleasure.